Hello and welcome to the Transformation Project, a podcast and community for women who are looking to transform into the best version of themselves no matter where they are at. A place where you can listen, learn, and laugh along with us as we dive deep into different topics to help you live a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled life. Remember, we are all learning here together, and therefore the content and opinions of the hosts and our guests should not be taken as medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back again to the Transformation Project. Today is another one of those episodes I think you're going to want to take notes for. We're talking all about the kids today. And we have John McMahon, aka The Rev, on with us today. John is the founder of Motov8 and Savage Angel, which runs events to inspire children aged 11 to 17 and their parents. Motov8 is run for boys, and Savage Angels, which we will be talking about today specifically, is a personal development event for girls that focuses on inspiring, informing, and instructing them how to make smarter, more informed decisions in life. Rev and his team really want to empower girls to hold core values that will allow them to stand strong in the face of social media and peer group influences, to blaze their own trail, and to do it with a great sense of purpose. An amazing thing, I think, for all of us, especially those of us like myself with teenagers. So welcome on, Rev. It's so awesome to have you on with us today.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Now, tell me a little bit more, please. How did you get into this space with Motov8, which I know you started off first, and then Savage Angels after that? How did you find yourself in that space?
That's a very good question, and it's 30 years in the making. I found myself in that space through being kicked out of 2 high schools as a teenager, being kicked out of home, not feeling like I fitted in anywhere, going through rejection, issues with my father, and I got to a place in my life where I had walked myself into a number of mental health disorders, and amongst anxiety, stress, depression, self-harming, and just constant self-sabotaging thoughts. And that led me to the place where at 18 I tried to take my life, and fortunately that didn't work out as I'd planned, and a mentor entered my world who gave up 2 hours every Saturday for 12 months to invest into me. That's where the transformation sort of happened. About 3 months in, he gave me the opportunity. Well, he asked me to volunteer and help him with a project that he was running. And I said yes. I didn't realize that included sharing a little bit about what I'd been through over the last 3 or 4 months, and really didn't want to do that. But I owed my mentor. He'd invested a lot of time and energy in me, and this man turned my life around. And so I felt I owed him that debt, And I spoke for 7 minutes about what had gone on in my world, and the response to it was so overwhelming. The gratitude from young people, and like an applause and hugs, and I was like, what is this feeling, and what it was a sense of pride, good pride, and self-worth, and my self-esteem had gone up a few levels, and that's where this started. That's the background.
Yeah, I think where you tell those stories and you truly kind of let all those things that have happened to you out, it's amazing how many people resonate with that and then can see that and improve from that. And I know that's a large part of the events that you run, is using those mentors, other boys or young girls or young women in each of those events that the kids and their parents, I guess, can relate to through their stories.
Yeah, it's like I literally say, not having a mentor can't be an option for you. Like, anyone who's successful in any area, whether it's the arts, whether it's politics, whether it's sport, whether it's entertainment, the hospitality industry, anyone who's successful has mentors, and you because you just can't do it on your own. And I sort of feel the same way about parenting, and I feel the same way about being a teenager. You're not meant to do this on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And so so I know with Motov8, you use sort of motorbikes and all that sort of thing to kind of get kind of connect with the boys, which is a tricky one. Girls are an entirely different situation. How did you find yourself in in Savage Angels and moving into that space?
Yeah. So I'll just touch on Motov8 really quickly. That started in a 3 by 3 meter cyclone fenced cage in the back of a woodwork room at the high school I was kicked out of. That's the space they gave me to run a workshop. It started there, and it now is what it is 13 years down the track. Savage Angels, I avoided working with girls for years, and I'm not really embarrassed to say this, but girls are complicated. Boys are easy. Like, boys have a fight with each other. It's over in like 60 seconds, and they're either best mates again or they never speak to each other again. Girls have a fight, and it lasts for 3 months, and 2,000 of their friends know about it, you know? I didn't want to open that can of worms, and so I honestly avoided it. And it wasn't until I was in the driveway of my house one night after a boys' event that I made the mistake of checking an email. I never look at my emails after an event. I leave it for 24 hours, you know? And I looked at this email, and it was a mum who was really grateful that her son had come to the boys' event, but wished there would have been one for her daughter, you know? And explained to me her daughter was 16 years old. And one day in school, when she looked up from her table of books, this girl would stare her out. So she'd look back down. Long story short, that girl arranged for another girl and another girl and another girl. And every class this girl had, these girls would be staring her out. She ended up missing school, ended up taking a whole term off. She was depressed. She was anxious. She was cutting herself. She was, you know, in having panic attacks. And I'm sitting in my car with these big, you know, like motorbikes, high-powered motorbikes in the back of my trailer, bawling my eyes out because I had a 16-year-old daughter who I knew had gone through similar things. And it was like, you know what? It's time to do something about this. It's time for you to stop avoiding this. And that was the initiator. But you know, there's been a lot of hurdles, and there's been a lot of fears and worries and concerns that I've had about me doing this. It's not just like I'm like, screw everyone, I'm just going to make this happen. I've had to deal with a lot of things, you know, to get to the point of where it is now 4 years down the track.
That's so awesome. I think this is so important. I have I have a 4-year-old daughter, and she goes to daycare. And I didn't realize this was going to start so young, but her and her friends have fights over who's their best friend. So she'll come home one day and she'll be super happy. Oh, Chloe's my best friend. Chloe's my best friend. And then the next day she'll come home all upset. Chloe's Cora's best friend today. And like, it just breaks your heart because you're like, how do I explain this to a 4-year-old? Like,
yeah.
And it's interesting, Jess, because there's always a Chloe. There's always like the alpha somewhere, and everybody argues about who's sitting next to Chloe. And you know what I mean? My daughter went through both of them have been through similar. I'm like, what is it about bloody Chloe that everybody wants to be next to? And that person has so much influence,
even at
over
such a young
their behavior, over what's cool, over how they think, what they say.
Yeah. I think those Chloes need to be micromanaged by the teachers, and you know, like you know, because they love to, you know, and they're sweet and they're beautiful children, you know, but they get a little bit of control, and they get a little bit of power and a little bit of authority, and they run with it, you know, they love it and don't like to let go of it.
You say that, and it actually kind of makes me reflect back onto my childhood, because I think I was a bit of a Chloe, if I'm honest.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to, I think I've changed. I hope so. I think so. But thinking back, I was definitely, if there was someone in our friend group who was annoying everyone, I was the one to say something. And I've had to amend some friendships now, being an adult, being like, I'm really sorry, like that. That was not nice of me. Yeah, this is very interesting. And now I feel like I'm on the flip side with my daughter, and she's only 4. And I'm like, oh gosh, this is going to be interesting.
But you know what? I get a lot of people ask me, do you run these events for younger children, or do you run these for 27-year-old boys or 27? And I'm like, no, I don't. And here's the reason why I work with this age group, and I explain it to them, but like I teach about 3 things that your parents want. They want peace in the home. They want to be respected, but not just, it would be nice if you respect us. They must be respected, and they need, and contribution. They're the 3 things. If you narrow it down from all the things that we want our kids to do, we want peace in the home, we want respect in the home, and we want contribution. And so where does that respect go out the window? My daughter speaks to me like I'm a piece of shit. She calls her dad this and says the meanest things and walks out. And 20 seconds later, she's not even thinking about it. But for the next 2 hours, mum is an absolute mess, or dad feels like he's worthless, or useless at what he's doing. Well, I can tell you, I was at Noosa yesterday, and I watched a mum tell her 4 or 5-year-old girl that this is the options you've got and you need to sit here. And the 4-year-old cracked it with that and got up and walked straight over to her nana and was pulling on her nana's, and her nana's like, which ice cream do you want? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, no, that's where it starts. It starts with the tone in their voice. It starts with the posture that they take, that stance that kids go into. But I'm happy working with 11 to 17-year-olds, like that's my go-to.
That's a
There's a
really
lot of
important
action in that age group.
Yeah. There's a lot of things going on. I think that's really important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially with girls kind of hormonally. So if I'm thinking like we have certain grades where we're like, that's a tough grade. And 11 is like grade 5-ish. Right? And it's like, oh, that's a tough one. And it is. It's like the girls, suddenly things start getting a bit different. And then again in sort of 16, 17. And we're seeing so many things with girls that I think we may not have ever seen before. Like there's a lot of aggression. There's a lot of sort of like physical aggression in bullying that I don't know that we've ever, and no concern about that, right? I think we recently here in Queensland had, 2 girls who literally kidnapped their young friend. They were like 12, 13 and held her hostage and physically assaulted her. And then we're bragging about it on social media. So there's like these really, to me, outlandish behaviors that we're not seeing obviously in all the girls, but it's definitely, I feel, more prevalent, or maybe we just see more of it because it's on social media. But I'd be interested, Rev, what do you, in your kind of events with girls, what do you find the main reason why parents are going, that's it, I need help, here's my kid, and bringing them to an event like yours?
I think there's a number of reasons. One is they are done, they are spent, they are tired. Some of them are going through mental health disorders and experiences themselves, and dare I say it, partly it's because of their children. Like, no one likes to, the kids are innocent in all of this. Well, no, not all the time. Because sometimes they are the cause of the tension, and I know it comes back to parenting, but that's some of the reasons. Other reasons, it's this, I talk about the word hope being a beautiful word. It's a nice word. It's like the word resilience, but nobody thinks about what you've actually got to go through to get to the place of resilience. So the word hope on its own isn't going to change anything. And I basically say that hope is not a strategy. It's desperation pretending to be one. You know, I hope this event changes things. I hope this, and that's why I send out emails to the parents. Bring a notepad, bring a piece of paper, bring a pen, because you're not going to remember everything I've said. You got to write it down. You got to take it away with you so that you can implement it. But you mentioned about hormones, you mentioned about emotions and things like that. Let me give you a real practical thing that I teach the girls and their parents is that you want to make smarter, more informed decisions on a more consistent basis. You need to stop making your decisions in the middle of emotionally charged moments. If you, a young person, male, female, whatever, and even adults, if you make your decisions in the middle of an emotionally charged moment and you don't have a strategic plan that you go to, you'll go with whatever comes into your mind in the moment. And that's why girls and boys say the shit that they say to the person who they love the most. They say some of the most horrendous, most hurtful things to their best friends and to their mums, you know? So what I teach them is you're not meant to embrace all your feelings. You're not meant to embrace all your emotions. People say that. Embrace the ones that are real, the ones that are true. But the ones that are lies, the ones that are manipulative of you, especially self-sabotaging thoughts, you're not meant to embrace them, you know? And so basically I teach parents that the only thing that you have data on your daughters to look to not just go, I feel she's doing well, I feel this is going well, is their education. We don't have data. Most parents don't have data on their kids' social life. They don't have data on their diet. They don't have data on their sleep. They don't have data. You know, I'm not saying that you get a folder out and start recording everything, but what I mean is we've got to have real concrete evidence to work with to know that what we're doing is right and not just guessing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how, like, without getting a folder, and like, do you ask them?
Do I ask what? Sorry.
Like, would the parents ask the daughters?
No, it's not. It's not so much about that. I say that to wake parents up to the fact that we just think because our daughters are quiet, you know, that everything's good, and they're on their iPads, on their phones, and all that. We just assume everything's good, but we started off saying, hey, we want to see your messages at the end of the day. We want to see you. We started off with that. And then we've eventually backed off it, and we don't think, and we just assume if it's quiet, she's doing okay, or if she's not upset, she's okay. And girls will sit up till 2 o'clock in the morning with 6 or 7 of their friends, sharing some of the most meaningful conversations with someone whose life experience difference between them is they own one more White Fox hoodie than the other. They earn $5 more pocket money a week, or they've had a boyfriend, or they've lived in one more house. But yet their mum, who knows them better than they know themselves, sleeping 4 meters away from them, God forbid that they would go to their mum about it, or that their mum even knows that they're up doing this. So it's like, you know what? We've got to step up as parents and really be across these areas that we used to be across, and that we've allowed to sort of slip by the wayside because it was painful, hard.
Yeah. And I think that's actually really interesting because, I mean, I've personally been in that situation where we've been like, well, they seem fine. She seems fine.
Yeah.
How was your day? Good. What did you do? Stuff. Right. And I know so many of, you know, my daughter's friends across the years, both my daughter's friends, when I'll speak to other parents, that's kind of the response. And to get deeper than that response really takes some serious effort, and sometimes feels almost impossible to break through that one word answer to get to some kind of deep conversation. So how do you feel would be the right way to kind of get your child to be open to sharing some of those conversations? Are there some openers? Are there some tips and tricks? Because I really think that's where it starts, is in that communication. And if you don't have communication with your child, you're almost fighting a losing battle to start.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I talk about is the fact that as parents, we are over across our kids' behavior, and we are quick. We're inconsistent, but we're quick to say that was wrong. You shouldn't have done that. We are quick to address the way they speak. Like, you shouldn't speak to your mother like that. You shouldn't speak to your sister like that. And we respond to that. But I think one of the areas that we fail, or we're inconsistent in, is actually, why do they think, why is that a thought that's in their head? So one of the things that I teach parents is, after the dust is settled, go back to your daughter and say, hey, that incident that happened last Friday, or that situation, and now they're responsible. Yeah, but I thought we cleared all that. I thought that was all sorted. Yeah, it is. But actually, what's of a concern to me is why you thought it was okay to think that. Like, where did that thought come from? Because we need to correct our daughter's thinking. If their thinking is wrong, we need to correct it. Because, we've just got a puppy, and when she's walking around the backyard, at the moment, the grass is perfect. If she walks the same way every day, she'll end up creating a little pathway, and kids do that. They create a pathway in the way they think. And if their thinking is off, we need to steer it back and go, you know what? It's not okay. That way of thinking it's not right, and we need to correct it. That's not fair that you would say that. And here's why it's not fair. So I have those open conversations. And again, not in the middle of emotionally charged moments.
Yeah, I mean, I've even noticed that with my daughter. We have this thing where, like, we'll talk about it at bedtime. If she comes home and she gets in a fight with her brother or anything like that, it's like, we just kind of, okay, we'll talk, like, this is done. We've kind of said our things, but we'll talk about this at bedtime. And that's the only time I can seem to get her to actually talk about things. Because if I ask her in the moment, it just ends up being more of a temper tantrum.
Yeah. Can I give you
no, go ahead.
Just an example. It was actually to do with my son, and we'd had a conversation on the phone, and at one point he was annoyed with me and he hung the phone up. Okay. Now, he started messaging me, and I said, don't message me. Call me back when you're ready to call me back. Okay. Because I'm not going to reply to messages. When he called me back, he had calmed down, and we talked through something, and we finished the conversation. I said, now, I just need to say something to you, mate. I would never hang the phone up on you. I said, that's total disrespect. For you to opt out like that and to shut me and cut me off like that. Now, I wasn't yelling at him. I was just saying, I will never do that to you, mate. You have no record of that ever being something that I've done to you. So it's actually not okay to do that. So do you get what I mean? I'm correcting his thinking, that because otherwise, if he does that to his dad, the person who has helped raise him, then why would he not take that on as a practice to anyone else, That's what I sort of mean by correcting the thought patterns,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. What would you say to help a child or a teenager who's being bullied?
Okay. Let me address verbal bullying and those taunts and stuff like that. That was what I really experienced through school, and I highlight this in my events. Physical bullying, it is significantly different. I talk about holding your space, and I talk about holding your ground as a person, and the younger you learn to do that, the stronger you'll be, and the more natural that will become a part of your life. Now, I'm not talking about getting in fights all the time, physical fights, but I'm talking about having the authority to stand and hold your ground, with whoever it is that's picking on you. But the verbal bullying, what I do is I give them an example. I call it word equations. And so we put the name of a person up there, a supposed person who's doing the bullying. Then we add, so we do an addition sign. Then we have, what are the words that that person uses against you? What are the things that she says to bring you undone? Now, me, when I was in school, my nickname was McFat. My surname's McMahon. I was an overweight kid. I came from Scotland. Everything was fried food. And I didn't even know I was overweight until I came to Australia and the boys started pointing it out, you know? But it humiliated me. It upset me every day. And I was baited. It was like it was the first time they had called me that every day. I couldn't get past it. So what we do is we write the person's name down, add the words that they say to you, and then we put an equal sign up. And then we go, what do you reckon would be a good value of that person and the words that they say in your world? Give me a number. And they all say 0. And I'm like, that is the answer to that equation. Now, I don't know if you were like me when you did maths at school. The teacher could do it on the board and you could do it in your book, but it still doesn't make sense to you. It still isn't, you haven't got it. And so what I say to the girls is when you go home, get out a piece of paper and write this out. When you wake up tomorrow morning, read it back to yourself 5 times for the next 30, 50, 75 days, however long it's going to take. Now, what will happen is one day you'll walk around the corner in school and that girl will walk past you. And instead of you avoiding her, instead of you looking down, instead of you hoping she doesn't see you, instead of you preparing a defense or feeling awkward, you'll feel nothing. She'll have no power over you. And what I say to them is, you know what? You're actually part of the problem in this because you give that person value. You place value on the words and the person. And this is the example I share. I say, imagine you're leaving this event tonight and you're walking to your car with your family and someone yelled out just randomly, "Hey, dickhead," okay? You turn around and you're like, whatever, and you get in your car and you go away. But if you turned around and that was your nana standing there, massive difference. Words the same. What's different? It's the relationship you have and the value you have of the person. So I basically say to the girls, these girls bring you undone with their words and the things that they say. And part of the reason is because you place value on them. And the way you reduce their value is by having a strategic plan that you go to every day and you go, you know what, I'm doing this until that person's words mean nothing to me. Yeah, it's great to start a new school. Yeah, it's great to change class, have a fresh go. But you know what? You're going to have that girl in your next year level, but she'll be called something else. She'll be in your university. She'll be in your workplace, and you'll employ someone like her as well. Better to deal with it now and have a strategy for life than to try and fix it every time, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. Is there anything you'd say to the parents of someone who is the bully?
Oh,
Yeah, good question. So just because I've got an answer for everything doesn't mean to say it is easy for it to change. But I basically say this: people change for 2 reasons and only 2 reasons. They see the writing on the wall themselves, identify weaknesses and areas of that they need to fix themselves, and they go and do something about it on their own back. The only other reason that people change is because crisis forces a change. And so what a lot of parents do with girls who are bullies, with girls who are controlling and manipulative, is they prolong the crisis and they cover for them, they excuse it away, they explain it away. She must be just going through this or going through that, or like we've moved house, we've done, and they prolong the crisis that needs to happen. And what I say to them is, bring the crisis to your door now. Don't wait 18 months. Don't wait another 2 years. You're already at the point of breaking. And you know what most mums do? Like, mums are awesome. Like I literally do what I do to honor my mum. You know, that is the absolute truth, to honor my mum for the love that the unconditional love that she showed me, despite what I showed her. And the mums that say I'm done, they'll keep getting up the next morning, the next day, and the next day, and they'll keep soldiering on until they won't be able to get up. You know, there'll be no energy left. They'll be undone completely.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of those kids, there seems to be such a I don't know if it's all kids, I can't remember back then, but such a selfish attitude, sort of not thinking of anyone else outside of themselves and what's important to them in that, and not how it affects other people, just what's important to me and what makes me feel good and what I care about, and nothing else kind of matters. Something else that came up quite a bit in when I was asking kind of the community what their daughters were struggling with, something else that came up a lot was things like depression, anxiety, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, all that sort of thing, which I know is incredibly prevalent in all our young people and a lot of people these days. And as you say, you know, you kind of struggle a lot with that anxiety and all that sort of stuff themselves. If you do have a child who is struggling so much, I mean, we have a lot of kids now who don't want to go to school. They're too anxious to leave their house. They prefer to communicate by text than talking to people, or struggle to look at people in the face even. Do you have any suggestions around that, or strategies around helping children with that?
So I'm not going to do the typical thing. I'm not going to talk about seeking professional help and all that, because that's just a given. It's a given that you would do that. What I'm going to talk about is the fact that it doesn't matter what learning difficulty you've got, or what disorder you've got, or what experience you're going through. They are all obstacles in your world, and obstacles are there to break through. Obstacles are there to get over and to find your way. I'm dyslexic. I've got ADHD. I got a little bit of OCD in there in the mix, and anxiety is something I've had to live with for a long time. I've had to come up with my own creative ways to break through in these areas in my life. Depression. I starved depression out of my world, and one of the ways that I do that is by consistently having small, medium, and large things to look forward to. So every 2 to 3 months, I've got things that I'm working on, and it could be, in my world, maybe $160 pair of shoes is a small thing. Okay, I just got married, and one of the small things that I was looking for, planning for, was wedding shoes. I was in New Zealand doing events, and I walk into a skate shop, and there is a white pair of Vans, leather Vans. And I'm like, I found them, you know. A medium thing that I was working towards was a mountain bike. I love outdoor, you know, exercise. I love anything that almost kills you, you know, extreme and all that. And so I found this mountain bike, and I went and put a deposit on it, put it on lay-by, actually. And I wanted to wait until I'd finished that tour to then go and buy it. I didn't want to dip into my savings, right? So that's a medium thing. Then one of the big things is I'm doing events in England in June, and I booked the ballroom in the Hilton in Liverpool, you know. So what I do is I teach the girls, and I do it differently at my boys' event, but I say I constantly have small, medium, and large things that I'm planning to look forward to. Little rewards, medium-sized rewards, and large rewards. Now, to make that relevant to young people, it could be something that costs $5. It could be something that costs $50. It could be something that costs. It doesn't even have to cost money. It could be something that isn't a monetary item. It could be time at the park with your mum. It could be, you know, going camping or going fishing, or, you know, looking forward to a family holiday at Christmas. But a lot of kids who get depressed are also kids who are bored, and they won't put in the effort to plan anything, or when they do, they systematically self-sabotage the thing that they had a good idea about, and why I'm not going to do it, why it's going to be shit, why no one's going to come. And it's like, you know, the donkey from Winnie the Pooh, you know, it's like, well, not that anyone would notice anyway. And This is what girls and boys, they do this. They talk themselves into these states, into these emotionally charged moments. And that's where what I was saying before is we need to correct their thoughts and that thinking pattern. Like you talked about selfishness before, you mentioned that, and I'm like, that to me is one of the major areas that if you let that go, it will create a pathway in a young person's mind. And I just refuse to let my children, so my kids are now 19, 22, and 25, but I've also got a stepdaughter who's 10 and a stepson who's 12. And I refuse to let them be selfish or to let them develop that mindset as a way of thinking.
Yeah, that's really good. I really like that. So much. I don't know. There's so much, I feel like. And I know
It's a complicated, man. I wish they came with a guidebook.
I know. And I know they're all different, but I really like this stopping the thought pattern. But so what would you kind of going back to if you have someone who's quiet and on their phone or on their iPad or something like that? And I'm thinking more like social media, because that's where, I mean, my kids aren't that age yet, but I know that's a big thing for everyone.
Mine sure is.
Yeah. So if they're on social media, however they get onto it, whether they're allowed or not allowed, what they're allowed to see, and you're trying to be part of this and you're trying to have a conversation with them, but that's what they're seeing, certain things, they're seeing their friends say certain things or influencers or whoever. How do you, I guess I'm saying, like, they see these things and they're not really saying it to you. How do you figure out where their mindset is and just trying to guide them on the right path without being that like annoying parent? I say annoying as in like I don't want like
air quotes,
like you're not being annoying, you're being caring, but like the kids are like, go away, mom, you're being annoying.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, to me, it's like, if I'm noticing a significant impact on my child's, my daughter's, my son's thoughts, words, and actions, I'll step in and I'll deal with feeling like a shitty parent for being the fun police. I'll deal with that, like, because I'm not there to be their best friend. I'm not there to be their buddy, through this time. And so that mum and dad hat that we love to wear, we need to take that off and put it in the cupboard for 6 months or 6 years, through this period of time. And this is the time where they need their parents more than anything. They need those boundaries around them. So if I notice my daughter, speaking a certain way or behaving a certain way, or even shutting down and being quiet, like withholding, as a result of physical friendships, like spending time with people or being online, I would disrupt that. I would change that. I'd step in. And again, I don't need to explain myself a million times over, because most parents explain themselves in the emotionally charged moment. In fact, what they do is they join their kids and they come up with their disciplines, they come up with their punishments on the fly in the middle of that emotionally charged moment. And they say things like, that's it, no internet for a month. And their partner's looking at them going, we run a home business, we need the internet, and then they march back the discipline, because in the moment, no one's thinking straight. So we don't have the time to get into this now, but in the parent coaching intensives that I do, and that's not a plug, I don't need business, I don't want more business, but in them, I teach parents, you need to have your disciplines set out in advance for the most common breaches to peace, respect, and contribution in the home. Because you can do this. Like, think about, how does your daughter, when she comes home, does she bring peace into the home or does she bring drama? Does she bring peace or does she bring arguments and debates? When she speaks to you, is the tone in her voice I'm not saying she has to be, like a princess and all excited to be around mum. I'm just talking about the tone and the words, and then you go, okay, how does she most commonly break these things that we have said are core values in our home? And then you have your disciplinary measures in advance so that they're no surprise to her. She doesn't get to negotiate what they are. That's mum and dad's place to do that, I don't, you should see the faces on the parents in my events when I say, who the hell told you that you should have a say in the disciplinary measures that you submit to? Like, where did that even come from? I tell you what you're entitled to, and I tell the girls this to their face. You're entitled to clothes on your back that your mum and dad can afford. You're entitled to food in your belly, and for the most part, food that's good for you. And you're entitled to have a bed to sleep in, not necessarily a door on your bedroom if you can't respect the things that your mum and dad have given you. Everything else is a privilege that your mum and your dad, or if you're a single mum or dad or a carer or a grandparents raising your daughter's kids, it's what they decide. You don't get to negotiate that. And the parents look at each other and they're like, oh my God, we've given over about 20% of our parental authority to our daughter. So
Yeah,
it's
it
like,
sounds so silly
like
when you
shares
say
in the
it.
company.
But
I'm nodding.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I see it all the time, and I know that we've allowed it at times too.
Yeah.
For sure.
The next question that comes is, how do you march that back? How do you take that back? And the first thing, I think an apology is in order. I think you apologize to your kids for going a little bit off track, and they'll look at you like, what are you talking about? But then you say, the apology is because we've got this part wrong, but here's what needs to happen. And you need to get back to the solid foundation that you used to have. And it's going to be painful depending on how long you've let that go and how inconsistent you've been. Think of it like renovating a house. Depending on how broken down the house is, will depend on how much work you have to take it back,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're going to fight you every step of the way, I guess. And you have to be prepared, because I think that consistency, you keep saying that word consistency, Rev. And I think that's probably the thing, is when it gets hard, and it is going to get hard. And I can say this because I've been through it. It's going to get hard as hell. And there might be sometimes as a parent where you like lock yourself in your room and cry for whatever the reason, because you think you're being too hard or it gets too difficult. It's that consistency that gets to be so important, and the plan.
You know what? It doesn't happen in every event, but sometimes there comes a moment when we're talking about this sort of stuff where I just say to the girls, you know what? Your mum and dad already feel like they're doing a shitty job of this parenting gig. They don't need your help to feel any worse than they already do. You've got no idea the pain and the pressure and the stress. And, parents protect their kids from that, but we're talking about teenagers. And your daughter needs to know how her manipulation and her negotiations and the argument and the drama, actually what impact that has on her mum. She needs to know that. And it's not going to break her spirit. It's not going to, your daughter's not going to resent you for the next 40 years because you didn't let her have more data on her phone, or you didn't let her on a TikTok platform or whatever. She'll resent you for 2 weeks or 2 months. And if she's really strong spirited, it might be 6 months, but when she knows that no is no, she'll accept it. In fact, I'm not sure if I can speak like this on your podcast, but you'll edit it out. I teach them that no is a complete fucking sentence.
You're perfectly welcome to say that on our podcast.
Yeah. No is not a suggestion. No is not a maybe. It's not if I keep asking. No is, it's a sentence on its own. And it's up to the parents to actually give it the volume and the weight that it should have.
Amazing. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Rev. It's been such a privilege to have you on here. Tell me now, if people want to get hold of you, if they want to find out more about where you're running events, anything like that, where would we direct them? And we'll pop it in the show notes.
The best place is Motov8 the Facebook page for Motov8 and the Facebook page for Savage Angels. That's where most of my audience are, on Facebook. And there's an events tab. You know, you get photos, videos, more, and all that. There's an events tab. And yeah, they're listed in order of dates. So some of them are in Australia, some of them in New Zealand, some of them are in the UK. Yeah, but basically we go to Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sydney, Melbourne, a lot of regional centres, a lot of outback, you know, Blackwater in the outback of Queensland, Perth, yeah, all over the place.
I think kids need help everywhere, and parents need help sometimes even more. So I can imagine there's a lot of driving around. I know you're talking to us right now from somewhere between Noosa and Brizzy on the side of the road, and we completely appreciate your time.
Do you know what happened like 5 minutes ago? A massive Chevy truck pulled up in front of me with its high beams on, and I'm like blinded by this truck, you know, and he didn't even know there was anyone in the car. So this is real. This is how we do life. This is how we're able to do what we do.
Absolutely. And we have, and again, there's that, you agreed that you were going to come on with us today at this time. And even though you got injured in a surfing accident and you have to be on the side of the road, you are still here. So you are nothing if not 100% to your word and consistent in what you say. And we really appreciate that.
And there's 4% left on my laptop battery.
So well timed. Thank you so much for joining us, Rev.
Perfect.
For everybody out there today, we hope you learned some stuff. If you need to get hold of Rev, we will have links in the show notes. It is Motov8, Motov8 for the boys, and Savage Angels for the girls. We'll put those links in the notes. And as always, wherever you are in the world, we hope you're having an absolutely incredible day. We'll see you next time on The Transformation Project. Thank you for listening in to this episode of The Transformation Project. The Transformation Project is not just a podcast. We're also a community. We're a collective of like-minded people all around the world seeking to live their best life and raise each other up. We're looking to support you, set goals, get healthier, connect with yourself and others at a deeper level, and better understand yourself and the world around you. We're always looking to link arms with like-minded people wanting to create more out of life. You can connect with us via our website, which is www.thetransformationproject.net.au. Email us at support@thetransformationproject.net.au, or simply listen in to one of our podcast episodes, which can be found on all podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can even watch some of our episodes on our YouTube channel, simply called The Transformation Project. Please like and subscribe to make sure you hear all the incredible shows and guests we have lined up. If you have any feedback or any comment, we would love to hear those, as well as any ideas or guests that you think we should be interviewing in future. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Transformation Project.